So welcome coders to this series of Leetcode solutions. My name is AK and this is the fifth video. So today I'll going to solve this question called valid parenthesis. As you can see, this is I have attempted this question but I haven't solved it. So let's solve together. So yeah, so let me take to the question. So this is the question 20 called valid parenthesis. Let me read the problem statement first. So the problem statement states that we have been given an string, given a string, and those strings will only include these parentheses and brackets, the first bracket, second bracket, and third bracket. And we need to verify if this string is valid, and how that can be checked through these three conditions. Open brackets must be closed by the same types of brackets, open brackets must be closed in correct order, and every closed bracket has a corresponding open bracket of same type. Simple common sense. This is, if we see example 1, so this is a valid string since the first parenthesis, first bracket, has been closed by its corresponding closing bracket. Yeah, if you see the example 2, the first bracket has been closed by the first closing bracket, the square bracket has been closed by the closed square brackets, and this curly bracket, opening bracket, has been closed by closing curly bracket. True. But if we see the example 3, then here the opening first bracket has been closed by the square bracket, which is false. So in that case we need to return false. So I hope you understood the problem well. So let's jump to the approach part. So what would be the approach to solve this problem? To solve this problem, I'll use the stack data structure. So stack data structure, I hope you know how stack works. So if there is a stack, stacks looks very similar to array, but in array, when we push an item and then when we retrieve it, then we retrieve the last item that we already had pushed in the array. And the stack works as the same as array, but these two are generally considered as separate data structure, but the properties of stack and arrays are the same. So we are going to use stack in this case. So what we are going to do, we are going to loop over this whole string, and once we get an opening bracket, then we need to push it into our stack, and we will keep pushing our opening brackets until we get an closing bracket. And once we get a closing bracket, then we need to remove some elements from the stack. And how we're going to do that, it basically depends upon some conditions. So let's code it first. So since we are going to loop through this string, we are going to create a for loop which will start from I is equals to 0, I'll less than s dot length gth, and I will go till s dot length. So here's the for loop. And if before I proceed, we need to create an object for that, an object, and the name of that object will be open to close. And this object will help us to identify which brackets correspond to which bracket. So here is an bracket, here is an object, and first will be this opening parenthesis, and the corresponding closing parenthesis for this bracket will be this thing. Yeah, same goes for the curly braces. So the corresponding closing bracket for this curly braces will be this thing. This thing. And for square brackets, the corresponding closing bracket for this square bracket will be the closed one. Yeah, that's all. So this is this is going to help us to identify which brackets is the closing corresponding closing bracket of which bracket. So yeah, so we are iterating through the string, and let create a character, and this character will points to the current character of the string. So s dot I, yeah, so s dot I is the current, sorry, dot, it's not dot, s of I, s of I is the current character, and we will check if that character if character in open to close, if that character is present in open to close set, or sorry, object, that means if this character is an opening bracket. Remember, when we loop through the value of when we check if this character is present in open to close, then we are checking if this character is present in the form of key into this open to close object, and the keys of this open to close are only opening brackets. So we are actually checking if this character is an opening bracket, and if that happens to be true, we will simply push this character into our stack. So stack dot push. Oh, we haven't created any stack. Let me create it. Let stack is equals to an empty stack first, and then we will store this char into our stack. Yeah, so every time every time we are confronted with an opening bracket, we are simply going to push it into the stack. Simple. And what if we confront a closing bracket, what if we found a closing bracket? So in that case, what we are going to do, we are going to first pop from that stack. So let last element from the stack is stack dot pop. So yeah, so stack dot pop will give us the last element that has been pushed into that stack, and that element will get stored in this last element variable. And then we will check if this character is not equal to not equal to open to close of last element, and if that happens to be true, return false. Now understand very carefully. If that character is not equals to open to close last element, so if that last element is if this else block has been written for if we get any closing bracket, so in if we find any closing bracket, then in that case this if block will not get executed. We'll jump to this else block, and in else block what we are doing, we are popping an element from the stack, which is also which will always going to be the last element, and that last element we stored it in last element variable, and we are checking if that character is equals to is not equals to open to close last element. If that last element is a square bracket, like closing square bracket, so one thing is sure, that this last element is always going to be a closing bracket, no matter which one. So this last element is an closing bracket, so we are checking if open to close of last element. So this last element is always going to be the opening brackets, of course, because we are only pushing opening brackets to this stack, and we are checking we are popping an opening bracket from that stack and putting it in last element, and we are checking open to close last element. So this last elements will always going to be these keys, and we are accessing the corresponding values of these keys. So let's suppose in currently we have this parenthesis in our stack, and then we are going to pop it. So last element will have this parenthesis, and we are checking open to close of last element. So open to close of this parenthesis, so this whole thing will return this closing parenthesis. And if our string consists any closing parenthesis, so we will check if that character which is closing parenthesis is not equals to this closing parenthesis, because this thing will return us closing parenthesis. And if that is not equal, and in this case it is going to be false, so we will not execute this if block, we will continue. That means we are actually handling things. But in case we are getting opening first bracket, opening second bracket, opening third bracket, and then we are getting this this parenthesis, closing parenthesis, then this thing will return us this closing this opening parenthesis, because this is the last one that we pushed into our stack. So the corresponding value of this opening bracket is this closing bracket. So this thing will return closing bracket, and we are checking if character is not equals to this thing. So character currently includes this closing parenthesis, and open to close last lm returns this thing. So of course these two are not equal, so in that case we are simply returning false from the function. That's all. And like if in between, if we found any like this thing will check all these conditions. If we try to dry run, you will understand that this thing is actually handling all these conditions. And in between, if it breaks any of these conditions, it will directly return false. And if not, this whole for loop will get executed, and we will not hit this condition, we will not hit return false condition, and we will return stack dot length gth is equals to 0. So at the end, if the string is valid, then we will have stack fully empty, I mean totally empty, and in that case stack dot length is equals to 0 will return us true. So we will return true when stack is string is valid. But if string is not valid, then we will not reach line number 26, we will here only return false, and then the string will the output will return false. So yep, that's all we have. Let me run this so that I can see if this is correct. So yeah, it got accepted in all these three test cases. Let me try to submit this, hopefully we get accepted. Yep, yeah, we are yeah, so the code is accepted. So this is going to work for all test cases. As you can see that it didn't stuck at any test case. So we have simply used stack. So the conclusion is we have simply used stack data structure to account for every closing brackets and every opening brackets. And if we found any opening bracket, we are simply pushing it to the stack, and in between, if we found any closing bracket, then we are checking if the last opening brackets value, the corresponding value, is the current element. If that is true, then we are skipping this if block. If that is not true, like the current closing bracket is not equals to our last post opening brackets corresponding closing bracket, then in that case we'll return false. So that's how this code works. Now the closing part. That's all for now. I hope you understood this problem. If you have any confusion, comment it right down, and we will meet you guys in our next easy solution. Till then, keep coding, keep solving, and keep learning. AK signing off.